Hello and welcome back to French Made Fun. In today's lesson, we'll be learning prepositions in French. Prepositions are basically words that indicate the location of an object. Some examples in English would be words like on, under, in front of, behind, and between. With the help of these words, we can know where the subject of a sentence is located. For example, when we say the cat is sleeping under the table, the word under helps us understand where exactly the cat is sleeping. On the screen here, we have a list of prepositions in French against their meanings in English so that it's simpler for you to recognize and memorize them. Let's go over them one by one, beginning with a, which could mean to or at, the, which could mean of or from, en, which means in, dans, which means inside. We will discuss the difference between en and dans in a bit. Hors de means outside. It's the opposite of dans. Avec means with, and its opposite is sans, which means without. Sur means on, and its opposite is sous, which means under or below. Entre means between, and its opposite is contre, which means against. Après means after. Avant means before. Derrière is behind, whereas devant is in front of. Let's go over their pronunciations once more. A, de, en, dans, hors de, avec, sans, sur, sous, entre, contre, après, avant, derrière, and devant. There are a few rules that you need to remember while using some of these prepositions in sentences. Let's take a look at them. One of the uses of the preposition a, which could mean to or at, is that it is used before cities. So the sentence Je suis à Mumbai translates to I am in Mumbai. As discussed in the video about indefinite and definite articles, in French, even non living things are assigned a gender, and countries are no exception. And the way to recognize a country's gender is by looking at its last alphabet. Countries ending with E or O, as we call it in French, are feminine, whereas those that don't end with E are masculine. Masculine countries are preceded with O, A, U, A, U, as we call it in French. So a sentence like Je suis au Japon means I am in Japan. Japon doesn't end with an E, and that's why it's a masculine country and we use O before it. Feminine countries, on the other hand, are preceded with on. Les parents sont en Inde. The parents are in India. And here is the French spelling for India, and E here makes it a feminine country, and hence it is preceded with en. Les parents sont en Inde. And lastly, we have something called as plural countries, which are preceded with O. An example of a plural country would be États-Unis, which is the United States of America. That's why we say le mari est aux États-Unis, which means the husband is in the USA. As mentioned in the previous video, the reason why we say aux États-Unis and not aux États-Unis is because O is followed by a word which begins with a vowel. And hence, to avoid vowel clash, we pronounce the X in this sentence. So we say aux États-Unis. Moving on, we have the French preposition de, which could mean of or from depending on the context. Of, for one, is a word that indicates possession. So in French, instead of saying Rupa's purse, we say the purse of Rupa. So le sac de Rupa would mean Rupa's purse or the purse of Rupa. Similarly, A student's book would be called Le Livre de l'étudiant. The classroom's blackboard would be Le tableau noir de la classe. The woman's picture would be Le photographe de la femme. Pay attention to how carefully the articles have been used before various words in these phrases. If it's still very confusing to you, I recommend going back and watching my video on indefinite and definite articles to do a recap before you come back to this video. Next up, we have en, which means in. Apart from being used before feminine countries, as we discussed in the previous slide, en is also used in some special cases. For example, I am on vacation is je suis en vacances in French. The boy is in prison would be le garçon est en prison. In September would be en septembre. And this applies to all the months of the year. In 3 days would be en 3 jours. And lastly, we have the famous phrase en retard, which means being late. So when someone says je suis en retard, they mean I am late. So the preposition en, meaning in, is used to give an indication of time. For instance, I am coming in September, or I am coming in 3 days, en septembre, en 3 jours. It's also used in phrases like on vacation, en vacances, in prison, en prison, and en retard, which means late. Since we were going to discuss the difference between en and dans, let's come to dans now, which means inside. Dans is used in a more physical sense when something is literally inside another thing. For example, je suis dans la classe. I am in the class. Or la trousse est dans le sac. The compass box is in the bag. Now, let's look at that rule about feminine and masculine countries a bit more in detail. As I mentioned, countries ending with an E are feminine. Some examples would be en Allemagne, which means in Germany, en Chine, in China, en France, in France, en Espagne, in Spain, on and in India. Note that the countries which begin with a vowel are preceded with on, whereas the countries which begin with a consonant, like Chine and France, are preceded with en. We do not pronounce the N here. On the other hand, masculine countries are those which do not end with an E. For example, au Japon, which means in Japan, or au Canada, which means in Canada. Plural countries are preceded with O. So aux États-Unis would be in the United States of America, and aux Philippines would be in Philippines. Now let's look at how these various prepositions are used in sentences in the French language. Le professeur est devant les étudiants. The professor is in front of the students. Devant here is the word for in front of. Le tableau noir est derrière le professeur. The blackboard is behind the professor. Derrière means behind. Le sac est sur la table. The bag is on the table. Sur means on. La règle est sur le livre. The ruler is under the book. Sur is under. Mardi est après lundi et avant mercredi. Tuesday is after Monday and before Wednesday. Après is the word for after, whereas avant is the word for before. Mars est entre février et avril. March is between February and April. Entre here is the word for between. À Delhi, on an, c'est un centre international. In Delhi, in India, this is an international center. Note that the reason why we used A before Delhi is because we use A before cities and or before and because and is a feminine country. And lastly, we have l'enfant est avec le père, which means the child is with the father. Avec here means with. This brings us to the end of our lesson on prepositions. I recommend you to play around with these prepositions and make your own sentences before going on to watch the next video. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you're notified when the next video drops. Au revoir.